Good evening and welcome. Yes, that was John Foster's face right up at your screen there. Apologies, it's not October the 31st yet, but we might get him to do that in another show. Hopefully, it'll be a little bit further back just after this. There we go. Normal. Honestly, John, if that had been me, I'd have put it straight back up at the front again, just for the lulls. But there we go. Lovely. Hello, welcome. Lovely to have you here, whether you are watching live or whether you are streaming back. Lovely to have you here for our little Tier 5 chat. We were here last week to talk about WNL. This week, we talk about Tier 5. And there's lots to talk about now that all 8 leagues have finally kicked off. But just before we do, let's have a chat with the boys, check out how they are doing. Stu, first show of the season since it kicked off. Lovely to have you here. How are you?
It's lovely to be here. It's long overdue.
Indeed, absolutely long overdue. So good to have you here. And John, over there in the corner, lovely to have you back as well. How are you, sir?
Yeah, very well, thank you, mate. Yeah, I've had a good week.
Yeah, fantastic. And of course, for you, Gaza, how are you?
I am wonderful, thank you. Sorry, various different things are opening on my screen, and it was a bit of a nightmare. But yeah, no, good. Good to be back. I think that it's interesting, isn't it? I think we're going to see tonight with Tier 5 in terms of start dates, because some of my leagues have many games to talk about, and John will probably still manage to talk forever about just one. So, yeah, we'll see how it goes.
It's going to be a giggle, that's for sure, to see what has happened here. But we are indeed going to kick ourselves off. Now, as ever, as you know, I'm a big fan of getting ourselves at the top of the country and then just popping ourselves back down. Because why not? Why not, I say? So there we go. Here is the first one. We are going to be looking at the North East Regional League Premier Division. So, there we go. It's a bit like watching John Foster's face again, that wasn't it? Right, here we go. So, Gaza, it is over to you. We've got the Joys of Thornaby at the top of that division. Obviously, a side that not so long ago looked like they might not exist anymore. Now here they are, fighting strong at the top of the league.
Yeah, I think what's particularly interesting here is kind of looking towards the bottom end of the table to start with. Both South Shields and Ponteland were there or thereabouts last season. I think they were kind of definitely in the top half. Both of them were in title contention at one point before Chester Street eventually went up as champions at the season. Bear in mind, we are still very, very early days, but South Shields have lost both of their games. Only out of that relegation zone on goal difference currently. And Ponteland have only played once. So some teams on 3 games, one team on 1. I don't know how we have such a disparity already, but that's the way it is. That's fancy with your little ticker of results across the bottom. He's proud of himself. You can see that little grin on his face. Yes. So, with some teams playing 3 games, some playing 1, that's a little bit strange. But 2 teams unbeaten, 3 teams unbeaten rather. Spennymoor haven't lost a game either, who have played more than 1. Obviously, Ponteland with their 1 draw. But Thornaby and Bradford, the kind of early pace setters towards the top. Ossett United there as well, and Alnwick Town with their single defeats. But it's close at the top, and I think what we're going to see in Tier 5 this season is going to be particularly interesting. As a one-off, there is the potential for the second place teams to be promoted now as well. It's not as simple as finish second and get promoted, though, because nothing in football is ever that straightforward. It's going to be 2 teams across the country they get promoted, finishing second. The way that's going to be determined, because if you have a 12-team league versus a 10-team league, that's unfair, is points per game. So obviously, Ossett United there on 2 points per game may or may not be in a position to be promoted if the season finished today. Who knows? But that's one thing to keep an eye on this season as well. So it's going to be interesting if we see a potential kind of runaway winner somewhere, that chasing packs still have absolutely everything to play for, because they could get promoted. The Northeast last year was a league that went right up to the wire, went down to the penultimate game of the season, when Bradford actually played Chester Street, and that win there for Chester Street saw them get promoted back to the National League. But Bradford have picked up where they left off. They picked up strong, 2 wins from Europe in 2 games. They'll be looking to push on. Thornaby to bounce back from where they've been in recent months and get 7 points on the board. Really strong goal difference as well. They've won their first 2 victories, by 11 goals combined. It's definitely going to be interesting. Also, as well, it's tricky that Wallsend, I think, struggled at some points last season. If my memory serves me correct, I may be wrong. But they also have had a difficult start to the season, losing their first 3, an average of 3 goals in each of those games, the deficit. So they will be looking to pick up some points. However, the league table at this stage of the season, with 2 or 3 games gone, doesn't really tell us a huge amount. Lots of things can change, lots of things can move around, but it's going to be interesting to keep an eye on it and see how things go.
Yeah, I couldn't agree more, really. I think it's one of those leagues that is unquestionably going to change around a little bit, but I do think it's a bit of a fairy tale there for Thornaby in terms of their start. So I am looking forward to seeing if they can maintain that all the way through the season. But as you say, lots of twists and turns to come, which I'm sure we will be here to watch. So we go. So that's quite good. Excuse me, because as good as it is to get these things, making them stop is not as easy. There we go. Look at that. How's that there? Look at this technology stuff we're getting there. So that is, of course, the start of how things look here. Now we're going to kind of go around on the eastern side of where we usually are. So that means we are going to pop down to the Midlands. And obviously, once we join the Midlands, we get to meet Mr. John Foster. Now, John, you have got a very interesting league coming up here in the East Midlands, and I'm hoping that you are going to be able to give us a little bit of insight into what is happening, because I've got to be honest with you, John, this is one of those leagues where weird things seem to be happening again.
Yep.
So here we are. Again, it's only 10 teams, but you'll notice that they've all played, all except for Lincoln City. Now, we know there's been a bit of a memorandum of understanding going on between Lincoln City and Lincoln United. Lincoln United, being the higher team, get effectively the pick of the players, but Lincoln City at this point in time unable to field a team as yet. I believe talking to somebody, it sounds like they've only got one person registered, and that one person obviously can't just go and play football all by themselves against 11 others, as they would probably get beaten, you would imagine. So talk to us a little bit about this league. It only started off a couple of weeks ago, but where does it stand and what is going on?
Yeah, so I'll talk a little bit about Lincoln shortly, but just a bit of an update on the league itself. So last season, there were only 9 teams in the league. This time is 10. We've got the full quota now. So 2 teams went down last season. That was Nottingham Trent University and Bradford United ladies, and Sheffield FC women went into Tier 4. There are 3 leagues, 3 divisions below this one, so you get 3 teams promoted. So that's how we've finally got 10 in there now, and not the 9. So 3 down, 3 up, And it's exciting because I think we've discussed something similar before, but you could be mid-table, third or fourth, and still looking over your shoulder come like February, March time. So I suppose it does obviously keep teams on their toes, being structured like that. Teams that's gone up into this league last season, this summer, was Gainsborough Trinity, who are currently sitting top. So they've had a great start. So in the Northern League in Tier 6, they got promoted. In the Central League, it was Loughborough Foxes Vixens and Wellingsborough, who's topping up the table at the moment. So those are 3 newly promoted teams. And then, of course, Lincoln City got relegated from Tier 4 last season. You've touched on the top part there. Obviously, it didn't go through in time, did it? So it was supposed to be Lincoln Women, whereas now you've still got Lincoln United, you've still got Lincoln City, you've got a Lincoln United development team in Tier 6. It's all under the same Twitter account. It's really interesting how they're advertising it, because they're saying it's Lincoln Tier 4 team, Lincoln's our Tier 5 team, our Tier 6 team with our development team. So it's still all under one bubble. But of course, officially, you've got Lincoln United development team and Lincoln City. So yeah, 2 games have been postponed already for Lincoln City, and that's what they are. It's not like a loss. They haven't given the points away. It is just postponement at the moment. But yes, it is obviously because they can't field the team at the moment. But it will be interesting to see how long that is allowed to go on for before something happens. Away from Lincoln, just to shout out. So Chesterfield came second last season. They opened their account this season by winning 11-0, and then the following game they lost 6-0. So try to figure that one out. What happened there? Losing 6-0 to Loughborough Foxes Vixens is an interesting one. So I think I need to do a bit of digging on what happened there. And just touching on what Gareth said, 2 teams promoted, I think that's fantastic. Obviously not a guarantee to out of each league, of course, but when we've seen so many times the top 2 teams run away with it, and the promotion just depends on one game, you can win pretty much every other game, but you just lose against that first team. It gives them a bit of a fighting chance to sit the runners up. So yeah, looking forward to seeing how this one develops. And yes, I'll keep updated with Lincoln City or Women. Let's go for City.
Delete as appropriate. I'm intrigued about what the other guys think about this Lincoln City thing. Stu, I'll ask you first on this one, as you sat there very patiently waiting your turn. But I mean, it just feels odd. I mean, Watford have done a very similar thing as well, where they signed a memorandum of understanding with Watford ladies. We'll get to that in our league very shortly. But they've done that, but both sides have been able to put out. It just feels a little bit weird that the whole purpose of doing what they're doing was supposed to be because they felt they were splitting the talent between 2 teams and not being able to achieve as well as they could do. It just feels like they've all just gone to one place, and now we're just going to see weeds grow. It doesn't feel like there's a resolution coming.
No. Well, there is a resolution coming. Lincoln City will drop out of the division, quite simply. And if you were involved in either team and there was this merger available, why would you do it? Ultimately, there's a significant amount of money involved in running a team at Tier 5 now, and so they're good. Why would they do it? That you're going to put all your resources into the Tier 4 side, and ultimately, if is it Lucia Crowfoot, I think, or I can't. Apologies. But the one player they do have signed on, you just bring them into the first team, or you'll just release them. It's inevitable, as Thanos said. Lincoln City's departure from that league is inevitable. There's not really much more you can say on it, to be honest. It's a bit silly. The league should be trying to get some resolutions ASAP and just not waste anyone's time otherwise.
Yeah, I mean, it is a bit sad. Gareth, for you, anything you'd add on the Lincoln story?
I don't think, excuse me, that there's kind of too much more to say. I think it's, I think it's a sad situation. I think it's always sad when a team folds, and I think that is the harsh reality at the moment of still the kind of sour side of women's football, is that it's not necessarily viable for a lot of teams. Not a lot of teams, but there's always a story every year, isn't there, of teams falling, of teams kind of dropping out of the league, or of teams wanting to get relegated and things. So, yeah, I think that there's probably space for both teams, but where you essentially sacrifice autonomy of your own squad, I think that's tricky, unless you are a specific development team, but in which case you need to make sure that you have 40 players signed on, because you need to fill up first team and a full bench. So you're looking at, for a WNL side, 18 players a week. So you're going to need at least 20 because of availability, and then the same thing with regional leagues. And where you've not got that, it's really tricky.
Yeah, no, I think we've covered that incredibly well on that one. So we are going to pop back over to Stu, who is going to kick us off on this one. If it pops up, there we go. So this is the Southern region, which has been going on for quite a while now. It's had a few games played in it and a few changes from last season as well, Stu. So as best as you can, what can you tell us about these lovely teams from the very south of England, including Wycombe Wanderers, who are looking like they are running the show? Have we lost you? John, Gareth, can you hear him? Oh, I see. Gareth,
I hear you, I can't hear you.
Hello, what about now?
There we go. We have us back. Off you go then, Stu.
I'm going to blame technology because for some reason my microphone logged into my phone, my recently updated iPhone, and for some reason it wanted to use this as my microphone. And I think what Anyway, where was I? Apologies, professional face on now. Yes, this is a really good little division. This includes one of my former clubs where I used to coach at, actually, Winchester City Flyers. And just to give them a little bit of moment in the limelight, they are a fantastic club without affiliation to a men's side. They share the same ground as Winchester City, but they are effectively independent. And where they play their youth games, a large recreation ground with must be at least 15 pitches. I've taken my Havant and Waterlooville and Moneyfields teams there in the past. And you rock up there and you see every pitch taken up, all with girls' football, with hundreds and hundreds of players. It's brilliant. They are a really good club, really well managed by staff that have proper heart, proper football people that do it for all the right reasons. But anyway, onto the league. So moving from the bottom up, you will see Reading FC Community Trust. It's still a bit of a sad story that they're even in this division, not because no club are too good to go down, but the circumstances of how they went down still doesn't quite seem fair. But they are rebuilding. They are not going to be troubling the teams at the top for promotion, but they are stabilising, and hopefully, given the next year or two, there might be some sort of investment and they can start to really push for promotion and be up into the National League, because they are a recognised name within women's football. They've got a great history, and much like Donny Bells and Notts County, women's football is richer for seeing some of these old favourites thriving and doing well, which could also be said for the team up in fourth position in Southampton Women, Sirens. They have had a horrific 12 months, or maybe probably even longer than that, probably horrific 2 years really, since Aaron Smith left. All the good work that's been done over the decades prior was undone in what was a shambolic spell at the club, and that's no reflection on necessarily the people that were there. I'm sure their hearts are in the right place, but everything that could have gone wrong went wrong. But Aaron's now come back into the fold as chairman, and with Gavin Calder managing. And one of the big problems they had last year was a squad. They had a really small squad of really young players, and the league table showed it in the National League Division 1 South. But again, much like Reading, they're rebuilding. I'd argue that Sirens are having a little bit more success. And while I think they will fall short, if they can finish third or fourth, I think that'd be a really good, respectable season for them. They are probably about 3 or 4 players away from challenging at the top, but they're a club close to my heart. I've got a lot of friends within the club, and it would be great to see them back up in the National League. For those that don't know, these have no affiliation to Saints, as many would know across the country. But there's only one club that has won the FA Cup more times than Southampton Women, and that is Arsenal. I think in the 70s, when the competition first started, I want to say they won 8 out of the first 9, or it might be 7 out of the first 8. So apologies for not having that fact immediately to hand. But they've got a rich history within the women's game. So again, it would be great to see this club up as high as possible, competing and doing well. But the really interesting story is within this top 3. I would love to say that I knew a great deal about Beaconsfield Town, but I don't. But they certainly caught my eye this weekend with their victory over AFC Portchester. If I just bring up my stats here. Here we go. Yes, so AFC Portchester are a team really looking to invest. They are now paying a lot of their players and a lot of their staff. They are very keen for promotion. Their men's side has been heavily investing during their promotion to the Isthmian League, and they're looking to share that success within their women's side. So over the summer, the Portsmouth under-23 side, a really strong reserve team within the National League Reserve Leagues, they folded now that Portsmouth were creating a PGA side, which then meant that effectively the current setup and a lot of the players were jettisoned. And Molly Small, the coach, I believe she would have been at Portsmouth essentially 2 to 3 years. She's now gone over to join Mark Duggan's coaching staff, and she's brought a few of her players with her. So that Portchester squad is absolutely jam-packed with talent. My only worry for that squad is that there is too much talent for the level of football and the frequency of games available. There is a lot of good players that are not going to get anywhere near the minutes that they need to. Portchester do have a strong reserve team within the Hampshire leagues, but a lot of the players that could step down from the first team and represent them shouldn't be playing at that level. They will not be progressing as footballers. So Mark has got a real job on his hands to balance that squad and keep everybody happy. If he can do that, fantastic. I grew up in Portchester, so the club has always got a little soft spot in my heart, but it's going to be a real challenge, to be honest. I think there's an argument that some of those younger players potentially might need to move on or potentially try and dual sign elsewhere to try and get the minutes, but I don't really know where that would necessarily happen. Some of them have got the skill and the ability to be playing at a low within a National League squad, or maybe even with a National League Reserve League. But it would seem slightly strange if you're dual signing with the National League side to then go play in the reserve team and then arguably playing up a division. I don't know. But that defeat against Beaconsfield Town will have stung them. But without being at the game, it could have been a bad day in the office. It could have been that Portchester, their XG could have been up and 6 or 7 goals, but they just weren't been able to find the back of the net in that day. So I don't know the ins and outs of the defeat, but the lack of the 3 points will hurt them. It does mean that they're going to have to try and take points off Wycombe, because the way that they're starting the season is fantastic. Like to add some context, with Portchester losing 2-1 to Beaconsfield, Wycombe beat them 7-1. And so far they've scored over 20 goals in their opening matches. So they are the heavy pace setters, but I certainly wouldn't rule out Portchester. They've got the ability to take 6 points off Wickham. As I say, I don't know too much about Beaconsfield, but I would say that the real shootout is going to be between those two teams at the top. Wickham, who have been within this division for as long as I can remember, they are well due for a promotion if they can keep this up. So yeah, it's going to be a really interesting one. And if you live anywhere near either of those two teams, I would thoroughly recommend getting to that Portchester Wickham game or the Wickham Portchester game, whichever one comes first. Book those dates out because they're going to be cracking games, and I think it's going to be a really interesting league to follow over the course of the season.
For sure, I think that is the one thing that is likely to be the case all the way across these leagues that we are currently looking at, is that simple fact that they absolutely will be, I think, incredibly interesting leagues to, as you say, watch and follow. So that's a really good thing, and helps us as well because how boring would it be if there wasn't? So that is a good one. Well, we are going to move over to my neck of the woods now, which is where the Eastern region is. And well, I mean, spoiler alert, I do have to tell you that this is my happy face. Again, trying to maintain professionalism, but it is rather wonderful to see this particular league table, because sitting proudly at the top of it is my side, the club that I work with and have worked with for the last few years, Stevenage, and they've just done incredibly well this season. In all genuine seriousness, they brought in Sean Lingham, also known as Sean Williams, previously, who played for Arsenal. He's been in FA Cup finals and all sorts. It was a statement signing of a manager, and quite a high pressure one as well, because you come in with all that fanfare. There's a little bit of expectation, I think, around the place, and so far so good. The pressure hasn't got to the club as yet. 5 games played, 3 clean sheets in all of that, and what a game they had at the weekend, by the way, against Haringey Borough. It all looked like it was about to come crashing down in this game. Borough took the lead, Stevenage that is, and Haringey Borough then equalised and eventually went 3-1 up with 78 minutes gone. But within the next 5 minutes, Stevenage had pulled themselves level. It was 3-3, had chances at the end to win. It was honestly one of the most incredible games that I've ever sat there and watched. A hat-trick as well for Renelle Humes there for Haringey, who is lethal at times, certainly in the games that she's played against us. But what was equally interesting was seeing that Royston Town, who obviously this time last year were top of the table and were flying for a very, very long period of time, they had the opportunity, of course, to pull themselves right back into this race. And they drew 3-3 as well, but with Hutton, who you will see are in 11th place at the moment. So Hutton, a new side to the division. They've come up from Division 1 South. That was a real surprise result. Royston did not expect that. I'm not entirely convinced Hutton expected that either. But what a game, and brilliant to see that actually all the way across this league there are opportunities for teams to win. So, yeah, that's how Royston Town are getting on. The game in hand for Royston and Stevenage against each other. That was a cancelled midweek game that will be being played, I think, this time next week. So there'll be no show next week, gang, because that's where I'll be, hopefully, watching Stevenage at Royston. So that was quite interesting. But also Bowers and Pitsea, who were also up there and have been doing incredibly well so far this season. They were right near the relegation zone towards the end of last season. They really did struggle. They've changed their management team. They've got in some great players, and they had a 1-1 draw with St Albans City. So everybody in the top 4 all drew, which meant it was very much as you were. Other sides that you can see in this league, obviously Enfield Town, bottom of the table at the moment on goal difference. They came down last season and are now spending their second season in the league. Harpenden Town in 10th. They won the Division 1 North and came up. They had a reasonably good start. 6 points really isn't all that bad out of your first 6 games for a newly promoted side, but it looks like it is going to be a much tighter relegation battle this season. And we mentioned, of course, Watford Ladies. Again, they have that memorandum of understanding with, we call them Proper Watford. Don't mean it disrespectfully, but it's got to be a way because Watford Ladies Development is a mouthful. So there we go. And just above them, of course, is Atletico London. You might be wondering, who's that, Barry? Well, that is also known as London Seaward. So they are the team that came down last season from the WNL, Division 1 Southeast. And as you can see, it's been a bit of a tricky one for them as well. So some of the new sides that have turned up struggling against some of the teams that are used to being there. But very, very interesting to see. Dussindale and Hellersden, they obviously came up last season as well. So this is their second season, but they've had a really strong start. I think that, honestly, you talk about how leagues are going to be. This is shaping up to be the best Eastern region that I have seen. And not just because Stevenage are at the top of it. Last year, Royston ran away with it and then Luton won it. The year before that, it was Real Bedford. The year before that, you had AFC Sudbury. They've just literally ran away with the league time and time again. And it's not been all that exciting. As you can see here at the minute, it's still nice and tight. There's still teams that are really fighting for it. And for me, let's be honest, that's what it's all about. So I am really, really looking forward to seeing how these guys get on. Now, Stu has just let us know that he's got a little something he wants to say about Haringey Borough. So go for it, sir. What have you got for Haringey Borough?
I just want to say how much of a fantastic club I think they are, to be honest. For those that don't know, I am involved with the media team at Moneyfields. And 2 years ago, we had an FA Cup run where we played them in the third round. Fantastic little setup. They might not have a huge fan base, but I'll tell you what, it's probably as big as some National League clubs. And I'll tell you what, it's better than a lot of National League clubs. Really committed, lovely little ground that they've got. It was absolutely freezing that day. I think it must have been a disgustingly cold December or January. But yeah, really lovely club, really good young players. They gave us a really, really tough game, to be honest. And we had to be our absolute best to get anything from it. And I would say they gave us a better game than Millwall did. And arguably, Cheltenham Town, when we went out more recently last season. Really good club. If they keep the same group of players together, the same group of staff together, then I think that they will push Stevenage all the way, and they will certainly be on their coattails. But yeah, really good club, doing really good things in the space of adversity. They're probably not the richest, but fair play to them. Round of applause, and keep an eye out for them because yeah, lovely club. Really appreciate what they're doing.
A very vocal fan base as well, as you say. You know, they really do get involved, which is good to see. But a little fact for you, because I do match reports, match previews, before every game. I call this one like the heavyweight clash because that's now 19 games that the two teams have played against each other, Stevenage and Haringey, and I think we're on 102 goals in those 19 games, which is quite something. And it's a reasonably fair and even split if you take away the one season a few years back where Stevenage they didn't 10 goals they scored in 2 games both times, so that just deceives a little bit, but that's obviously why we end up with so many goals. So it's always a high scoring affair. So certainly, as Stu would say, a league that we should be looking out for, because honestly, I think it's going to be absolutely superb to finally have an Eastern region league that is going to be competitive. And that's a very important thing, I think, in any league. It's no fun when teams just run away with it. So we are going to move back up north. That is the plan. I say it's the plan. Oh, there it is. There we go. Northwest. Perfect. For Mr. Gareth. He is going to take us through this one. Now, the Northwest, I love this one, Gareth. I really do. And the reason why I love this one is because the Northwest Regional League, to me, is, I would call them the common sense league. They've understood the assignment. They recognise the fact that in the north of England, it's cold. It's a little bit chilly, a little bit parky. The weather's not always the kindest to you. This is a league that is, to all intents and purposes, I mean, it's over a quarter finished already. And the West Midlands have literally only just kicked off pretty much. So it's a strange situation, but they understand what they've got to do. They know all those things. I believe this is the league that Wythenshawe came up from. So, yeah, have a little chat with us about this. I know you're a big fan of Fylde. Lovely to see them up the top. Yeah, let us know. How's this league getting on?
So first of all, one thing to note, if you are particularly eagle-eyed, there's been a structural change in the Northwest Regional League this season. We've gone from Format A to Format B, I think is the way around it is. Essentially, it's now a one division Premier Division and a 3-division Division 1. So it's gone from being just North and South to North, South and Central, hence the additional relegation spots there. However, that being said, Fleetwood and Curzon Ashton have had tricky starts to the season. Not quite able really to get a grasp on things, and conceding lots of goals in the process. Fleetwood have lost obviously all of their games. They lost 1-0 to Mancunian Unity on the opening day, and you thought, well, that's probably a good result. Unity is a strong side. Then they proceeded to lose 6-1 against Fylde, 6-1 against Darwin, 6-1 against Bury, 5-0 against Tranmere, and 4-2 against Curzon last weekend. So Curzon's one win has come against Fleetwood. It's a tricky start, particularly given that Fleetwood have 3 teams within the pyramid. They have obviously Fleetwood Town Wrens, that's the first team. They have a reserve team playing at tier 6, and they have a development team playing at tier 7. So any sort of relegation there has then a big knock-on impact across the pyramid, because obviously you can't play in the same league as your current, as another team at your club. So they'll be hoping to fix that. Curzon have had a turbulent summer. Their manager left to go to Wigan Athletic, and I think they've struggled to kind of adapt with some player turnover and things as well. Losing to Crewe, West Didsbury, losing 7-0 to Unity and 8-1 against Bolton. So there's been some kind of big results there. Polton Vics, newly promoted, again finding it tough to adapt. Their win came on the opening day of the season against FC United via a penalty. At that point, FC United hadn't signed a goalkeeper yet either, after Sophie Donald left to go to Cheadle in the National League. So since the opening day of the season, they've not been able to get a victory. Then we kind of get into a hugely competitive midfield. 5 points between 2nd and 9th, and only 3 between 2nd and 8th is really interesting. And all of those teams have been able to take points off each other. FC United lost against West Didsbury, but beat Bolton Wanderers. So they narrowly avoided relegation last season. New manager there, kind of lots of new players and things coming together, and they've had some fantastic results. They, like I say, have beaten Bolton. They also beat Darwin, and have since kind of beaten Bolton as well. What's particularly strange about the league this season, yes, starting early, getting lots of games in is good. However, FC United have played West Didsbury twice, have played Polton Vics twice. Meanwhile, haven't played Crewe, haven't played Unity, haven't played Fleetwood. So there's teams where they've not played them at all, but teams where they've played them twice, including West Didsbury on Wednesday and the following Sunday. So played them twice in the space of 4 days, which is an interesting way of doing things. mainly, I think, from when I used to officiate cricket, we once had the middle of the season, the fixture list was essentially reversed. So when you'd play the 11th side in the league, you would then play them again the following week. And that was tricky because if you had an issue between those two teams one week, that's not likely to have gone anywhere by the following week. And so that would be even more inflamed if it was within 4 days. So I would always try and avoid that for that reason, if nothing else. I think when you look towards the top, though, that's kind of where I think it's particularly interesting. Bolton, lots and lots of chat over the summer about the players they were bringing in, the kind of financial backing that they have as a club. They brought in a player that currently plays in the WSL, I believe. They are registered for London City Lionesses as a coach. Interesting dynamic there. Bringing in some good players. They dominated the league last season. I think lots of people are expecting them to kind of challenge with Fylde and Unity for the title, myself being one of them. I don't think they've hit the ground running as much as they were expecting. They had a huge game at the weekend against Unity, which they were able to win. And I was thinking that's a must-win game for them so early on in the season, because if you lose that game, you're over 10 points behind Fylde, and I think you can kiss the title goodbye. You kind of have to keep in touch, which they've been able to do. They're 3 points off second. I think they're 8 points off Fylde. They have to play them still once. I think that's going to be a difficult gap already to turn around a quarter of the way into the season. Not impossible, of course, but yeah, I think if you look at Bolton's results against teams that are around them in the league, they lost against Darwin 2-1, lost against FC United 4-2, beat West Didsbury 5-3, beat Curzon 8-1. That feels like a bit of an outlier given Curzon's issues. Lost against Fylde 1-0, beat Unity 2-1, drew against Crewe 1-1. So a real mixed bag, I think, for Bolton. They'll be hoping, I think, for an uptick in form. I think it'll be interesting. I've not kind of seen too many interviews. I think internally they will have wanted to go straight through, at least kind of be there or thereabouts. I think they'll recognise that Fylde are a particularly strong side, but I think with the second place option available this season, that internally would definitely be kind of what they were gunning for, and it'll be interesting to see if they can turn that round. Likewise, I think Mancunian Unity would definitely have been looking at the title this season. Came close last season, dropped off towards the end after their kind of really strong cup runs. I think as we at Wythenshawe managed to kind of get there or thereabouts towards the title, I think the focus at Unity shifted to silverware rather than the title challenge, which absolutely perfectly reasonable thing to do. And I think lots of clubs would have done the same in the same situation. Be interesting to see how they kick on from here. Their only defeat has come against Bolton, and their draw was against West Didsbury at the weekend, which is a huge result for West Didsbury. But I think what we're seeing here, I'll kind of get onto Fylde shortly, but is that anybody can take points off anybody. I don't think anybody would have expected FC United to take points off Bolton. I don't think anybody would have expected West Didsbury to take points off Unity. Or nobody expecting is potentially a bit harsh, but definitely Bolton and Unity would have been the favourites in those situations. And I think it shows that the league is hugely open, that we could end up with a real surprise, kind of pushing on for that second place spot. Or after things shake out by Christmas, we could be looking at kind of a really predictable table. We don't know. And I think that's really interesting at the moment. Crewe had a difficult season last season. We played with Wythenshawe in pre-season. Crewe are a really difficult side to beat. And I think that's one of the things at this level which can bring huge success is just be difficult to beat. Make playing at home a tough place to come. And that's kind of half the battle done. Finally, a note on Fylde. They're a strong side. We played them in pre-season as well, and they're a good side. They've kind of got a lot of the spine that have come down from the National League, and you can tell because they were a well-drilled side, did their job, did it well, capitalise on mistakes, and I think ultimately that's going to be a lot of success for them this season. They're definitely early pace setters. A 5-point lead after 6 games is significant. Like you say, they've not dropped a single point yet. They're not just not losing, they're not dropping points. And I think that is going to be kind of how things set out for them. Like we say, they have played Bolton, they've played Darwin. Their upcoming games, they have, it's the FA Cup this weekend, so a break from the league fixtures there. But they kind of play Curzon at the end of the month. Then we have a break again for the FA Cup. Then they have a run of league games of Crewe, Unity, Fleetwood and Tranmere. And I imagine if they come through those sets of games, still unbeaten or, still with a 100% record, I think everyone will be looking at them as title favourites. And this is why it's so important to have second place mean something, because you look at that league table from Unity down to FC United, even West Didsbury as well. I don't want to call it. I don't want to put my neck on the line and say this team are going to finish second. Who knows? And I think that's really interesting. But early signs indicate Fylde are good for a title challenge, that Fleetwood are going to struggle. There is an 8-point gap already between them and safety. And when you only have 22 games to turn that around, having already played 6 of them and not got a single point, you need to start picking up points. You need to start picking up points against those teams around you. So that loss against Curzon is even more damaging for them. There's some nice people there, and so I feel for everybody involved, and they're going to hope to start picking up some points soon. I'm aware I've done a bit with John Foster and talked an awful lot here, but it's a league that I really enjoy. It's a league that I've been a part of winning twice, it's going to be exciting this year, and I can't call anything in that between those 2 dotted lines. Who knows where that's all going to shake out, but there is definitely early trends at the top and bottom.
For sure, and to be fair, you do have twice as many games to talk about as pretty much everybody on the panel, so that seems pretty fair to me. Certainly one of the first ones to start alongside the Eastern region and the London and South East. They were certainly amongst the 3 pace setters in that one. I've also just noticed I've stuck a 7 in the middle of there, and I don't know why that's got there. For a minute I thought it was a cursor, but it's just sat there right in the middle next to Darwin. So that appears to be Barry's error of the week. He's just thrown a 7 into the middle of the league, and who knows what that's there for. Answers on a postcard, get those in there. And again, very interesting what you said there about the 8 points, because it's strange, isn't it, how we can look at Bolton and see 8 points between them and Fylde and think, maybe there's a chance. But then you look at the difference between Fleetwood Town and West Didsbury there, and all of a sudden, because it's everything that's going on down at the bottom of the league, it's a much, much harder task for them. So and it is, so what is the problem when you are down at the bottom? Well, he has waited patiently as well. It's Mr. John Foster, and he gets the opportunity to talk about the West Midlands Regional Women's Football League. And as you can see, there's been a plethora of games played across the West Midlands. They've run their socks off, but mainly in pre-season. So 2 games to be played have been played so far, John. The thing I really like is, what, we take the mickey out of John quite a bit sometimes, but when I was writing this league table up, I heard names like Shifnal Town, Lye Town, Camden Court, and I heard every single one of those in John Foster's voice. And it just goes to show that as much as he does go on about some of these teams, they do just stick in your mind. So that's a really good thing. So off you go, John. West Midlands, what's happening? Who's the runners and riders?
Well, thank you for that, Barry. And it is a league that I'm very fond of. It's not my favourite league, but much like Gareth, I have got a link to here, because this was the first league that but it was the league that got me involved in lower league. So back in 2021, I started following this league very closely to the point where I actually stopped going to Man United and followed this league. So it is a league that I'm very fond of. Just a bit of a background, Kidderminster Harriers got promoted out of this league. Solihull Sporting and Knoll got relegated out of the league. So we now have Solihull Moors, who got relegated into it, and Hensford and Reddish Borough getting promoted into it. So that's our 12 for this season. Let's talk a little bit about Lightown. So Lightown, my favourites for this league. It was my favourites last year, and it was my favourites this season before. A very strong team, very stable team. I'm not saying that they're wealthy, but they're definitely not poor. They're doing a lot of good things behind the scenes with all their junior sections right the way up through the development team, reserve teams. So you can see why Light's consistency is consistently there. Last season they missed getting promoted by one game, and they were 13 points ahead of third place. There were the season before that, there was one game away from being promoted and missed out and was 7 points away from third place. So they've always been in the top two in the last 2 years, and I think that'll be the same this season. So surely, who's around there that can beat them? Could Solihull Moors drop into the league and challenge them? Coming from a very stable Tier 4 side, can they drop into Tier 5 and challenge them? A lot of people are saying potentially, but they're not the favourites. Solihull Moors aren't a stable men's and women's side. So how about a newly promoted Tier 6 side recruit a Tier 3 manager who brings in a few Tier 3 players with him, maybe Reddish Borough, and now Lightown are just pulling their hair out thinking, oh no, this is going to be a third season where all of a sudden we're going to get overtook by a new team on the block. Reddish Borough have signed A. Clements this season, formerly of Stourbridge, took Tier 3 players with him, and they're currently sitting top of the league. So I have been down to Reddish Borough. I've met quite a few people there. I was lucky enough to do a radio interview there and met a lot of people at training ground, not just to do with the women's section either. And it's a good setup, so I've got to shout them out because, one, nice enough to invite me down, but two, I think the results will be there this season. In my opinion, they'll get promoted. They got promoted last season, and they'll be in the top 3 in this season. So, ones to watch out for there. Just a few results. So obviously, there's not been too many games, but yeah, Reddish Borough got 6 points. They've beat Leek and Camden Court, both away from home already. Cov Sphinx had a huge 3-2 win over Hensford. Hensford have got a good reputation. They got promoted last season. And they are a decent club with good backing at this level. Shifnal finished 3rd last season, equal on points with Port Vale, and they just won Port Vale 4-3. So that's definitely an interesting one to look out for. Lightown, so they won 4-0, but then they got a draw last week, and that's where people's eyebrows are raised. A 2-2 draw against Shrewsbury is not a bad result, but if you want to start winning the league, and Reddish Borough have got off to a flying start, then it's definitely 2 points dropped. And just towards the bottom of the league, Port Vale and Alvechurch gone through a lot of transitions this season with players. So I understand that they're in a bit of a tough spot at the moment. And Leek Town, it doesn't get any easy for them because they're playing second place, Cov Sphinx, in their next league game. So it's going to be an exciting league that I'm going to be keeping an eye out on for many reasons. And it's just going to be a massive tight battle, I think, between 3 teams. We'll see that throughout the season. Like Gareth said, County Cup this weekend, but the weekend after, I've hyped it up enough. Reddish Borough against Lightown.
Which cup?
FA Cup, John.
What was that, sorry?
FA Cup,
FA
John.
Cup, isn't it?
Oh, sorry, yeah. Oh, sorry, my mistake, yeah. I'm getting too excited about Reddish Borough and Lightown.
Bless you, John. I'll tell you something. I love it. I do love listening to you. I've written down 3 things that stood out for me on that one. The first one being, they're not rich, but they're definitely not poor. Love that. That is a great sentence. The fact that you managed to get Stourbridge in a league they're not even in. And I was proud to see how you pronounce Coventry Sphinx. And of course, it was Cov Sphinx. There we go. So love it. Love it. Absolutely love it. There's
I
nothing.
Do you know
will
what I
also
love more?
say, go on,
Absolutely.
Stu.
I was just going to. The thing I love the most about John is his T-shirt. They're my best dressed out of all of us since '71. Fantastic,
Oh,
fantastic.
what a little
I've got two more in my drawer right in front of me that are size small. If anyone wants one, drop me a DM.
I think my days of fitting into a size small finished when I was about 7 years old, Stu, I'm afraid.
I know that feeling.
What I will say as well is I always love when I listen to John speak of the idea of all of the losing teams every week going and sitting on the opposition's mantelpieces because they've been won.
Yes, absolutely. Yes, Redditch won them. But yeah, really good. And actually, apart from the bottom two teams there, it was really interesting to see how above that, all of the teams that were playing were literally just goal fests, but only either level 2, or as you said, or 3-2, 4-3. So some really, really nice scores in there. Right, we are going to move over to Stu for our penultimate league of the evening. And of course, we've looked at the Southern League. So it is now time to look at the Southwest. And here it is. Magic of technology. 11 teams in there with some rather big sides in there. Poole Town, again, I mean, this is a little bit West Midlands-esque, to be fair, Stu. They've also started a little bit on the later side. I think they were enjoying the weather around the beaches. But lots of Puckle Church Sports, possibly one of my favourite names in football. It's right up there with Winchester City Flyers. There's some great names. There really, really are. And of course, AEK Bocco, which just to me makes it sound like we're in Greece. So love some of these places, but tell us a little bit about them.
Well, my knowledge of this league tends to come from my Moneyfields background as well. We've had St Austell in our division over the years, and we faced Gloucester City in the FA Cup a couple of years ago. Gloucester City are one club that seem to be doing some nice things and working their way up through the league. But I don't want to be really harsh. I think from a competitive standpoint within its own league, we don't know where it's really going at the moment. It's really too early for me to say. If I compare this league to all the other leagues within the tier, I think it's one of the weaker of the divisions. I think if you're a team in the top 3 or 4 of this league, you're probably going to be in the bottom 4 or 5 of most of the other divisions that we've already spoken about. But you can only beat who are around you. And I love that little neck of the woods. Poole Town, it's great to see them winning. They have spent a long time in leagues probably where they've been punching above their weight, and they've been hanging around the lower reaches of the division. So I imagine if you're involved in Poole Town, then actually it's probably quite nice just to be down into a division where you can be a bigger fish in a smaller pond, and they're getting the wins. Ultimately, no one likes losing, and if it means that you have to drop down a division to actually pick up some points and get the wins, then actually that can be really nice ultimately. But come back to me on this one in a couple of months, and hopefully I can talk a little bit more about the league, because it's anyone's game at the moment. It's only 2 games at most. So what can I say?
No, very true, Stu. And of course, just the 2 sides that have come up, nobody was relegated into the division. But yeah, lots going on at the beginning, but simple 1 game for quite a lot of them, only a few that have managed to, down to the fact that some of these have been postponed. So there we go. That is the Southwest, which of course leaves us with just 1 league to look at, and that league is the London and South East Regional League. And here it comes. So lots going on in the London and South East. They have also played between sort of 3 and 5 games, depending on who you are. And Very, very interesting again. The teams that came up, Brentford and Aylesford, who've both done, I think, incredibly well starting off their season. Brentford, just like they did last year, doing very good at the top of their division, and level with Saltdean United on points, who are just smashing in the goals at the moment. Oh, I forgot to push that button. There we go. So you've also got coming down though, Ashford Town. And it's really interesting to see how some of these teams that struggled when they were in the Division 1 Southeast of the WNL have also then struggled when they've dropped back down into Tier 5. And I can imagine, you know, when it's one way up, I don't know, Gareth might be able to mention this a little bit more, but when you've won Tier 5, you moved up into Tier 4, it's much easier, I would imagine, to be recruiting your new players should you need to, and to strengthen the squad. Whereas when you're already in the Division 1 Southeast, for example, and you drop down, much, much harder to find Tier 5 people that are wanting to move, especially when it was such a difficult WNL league. I just think that both Atletico London and Ashford Town really, really struggled there, and it's not looking too promising for them just yet. But there is, of course, Ebbsfleet United and Sport London e Benfica, which is very AEK Bocco sounding, and I love the fact that we have a team like that in the league as well. So they're both doing incredibly well. But let's look up at the top, because Saltdean United were doing quite well last season. They were right up there with Fulham. Dorking were obviously one of those sides as well. We will talk a little bit about them in a minute. But Saltdean United have had a superb season so far. Those 21 goals, by the way, that's 21 goals scored. They've not conceded a goal yet this season, which is absolutely stunning. They've beat Ebbsfleet United 5-0, Ashford Town 4-0, Sutton United 4-0, Aylesford 3-0, and they beat Sport London 5-0 as well. So to be in a situation where you have started your league off as well as that, with 5 games played, 5 clean sheets. I mean, I don't know who their defensive partnership is, but I would imagine it's the Great Wall of China, the Berlin Wall, just about everything, because there is nothing, absolutely nothing, getting past that defence. But equally, big teams in Brentford and Dartford. Brentford not quite managing to do just as well as Saltdean, because they have conceded to Sutton United. But other than that, they have also managed to keep really good clean sheets, beating Aylesford 1-0, Newhaven 4-0, Barking 3-0, and Ebbsfleet 3-0. They would have played Dartford, but that game was that's in October. Let's not worry too much about that. That's a very early postponement, but there you go. So lots going on there up at the top. Again, seeing Dartford do incredibly well. They were superb last season, really pushed Fulham to the title, but couldn't quite get there. Dorking Wanderers were another side that really pushed up until about 3/4 of the way through the season, and then just dropped back a little bit. They're in a very interesting situation. Just the 3 games played at the moment, but 6 points on the board. It's a weird one for Dorking. You would have expected them to have done a little bit better. Their first game was against Aylesford, and they lost it. They then just got past Millwall in a 4-3 win, and then just past Newhaven 3-2 as well. So lots going on. Their defence is not quite doing what they would want it to do, it seems, but they are managing to score quite a few goals as well. Nice to see Millwall Lionesses in there and getting some points on the board, and of course Sutton United as well. So yeah, Stu, come in and talk about that. Dartford losing Vaughan and Russ, 21 and 15 goals last season. It's a big one. Tell us a bit about them too.
Well, Dartford are a club that are sort of close to my heart. I've sponsored a player for the last 2 years there in Gabby Howe, and I thought they were going to be early pace setters. And granted, they are only 3 points off the top, haven't played a game less, but they have got their work cut out for them a little bit, having lost those 2 players. I say having lost 2 players, I can't see them on full time, and so that tells me that they've probably gone elsewhere for whatever reason. And the other goal scorer they had last year, and Shawnee Griffiths hasn't scored once yet this season, which is interesting. But so hopefully there's more to come from the club, because they have been pushing at the top. They've got a very good background. It's a name dropping. It's another team we've played with, Moneyfields. This Moneyfields team do get about a bit, it seems, but they're a good club. I think this could have the potential to be a really good 3-horse race as the season goes on. So yeah, certainly one to keep an eye out on, and it's certainly worth keeping an eye on Since 71 blog this weekend, because we might have an article speaking to someone at Saltine in preparation for their FA Cup tie. So watch this space.
Look at that. We've had the T-shirt. Now we've got the podcast. Gareth, you're going to have to plug something quick. Find something to plug so that we can get people watching the Since 71 stuff. Just to close on the London and South East, of course, you've got Saltine, Danielle Lane. She scored 5 goals for them. Lean Equo from Dartford. She scored 5. But I find it amazing. Ashford Town struggling in the manner that they are. But Charlotte Close has scored 5 for them as well. So, yeah, I find it absolutely insane sometimes that even these sides that are right down the bottom, they've got players that will absolutely score goals for fun. And that is what makes this league and this tier so interesting to watch. We're almost out of time, but we were just going to have one little moment. As you see there at the top, it says FA Cup rolls on, and I kind of wanted to just ask people, we're not going to, there's far too many games to be looking into the FA Cup at the same time as doing this, but I kind of want to ask this because we're all involved in football. Gareth, you've had lots of FA Cup matches with Wythenshawe and been to watch lots as well. John, I know that you've had a lot of time in the FA Cup in the women's game, and of course Stu, the same for you as well. So I just kind of wondered if you had like a sort of special memory from the Women's FA Cup that you'd like to share, because it's all about stories. And I think it is a really good opportunity for us to just sort of talk about how this stage of the competition, the second qualifying round, and what it can lead to. So yeah, anything like that. We'll kick off with Gaza because we like to go from north down to south, so we might as well just keep it the same. We'll go Gareth, John, and then Stuart. What are your biggest memories or your best memories of the Women's FA Cup?
Firstly, I adore this competition so much. I think having a competition where we can all sit here and say that if we have a good run, we can draw Arsenal. And Chloe Kelly, who won the Euros for the Lionesses in the summer, was the poster girl of that success, could at some point be visiting one of our clubs. Leeds United, who we drew 2-2 against at the weekend, 3 years ago, I think it was, drew Arsenal in the FA Cup. And it blows my mind that, if 3 wins away from potentially drawing a huge team. I think my favourite victory kind of a bit of a spoiler. My favourite memory was a victory we had. I can't remember if it was last season or season before. Last season. We drew Barnsley the last 2 years running at Wythenshawe. We drew Barnsley Women FC. And in the first year, they beat us, knocked us out. And then last year we drew them again, and we were like, right, this time it's not going to happen. Little old Wythenshawe, let's hope they underestimate us, all sorts of that stuff. And we beat them 7-0. So kind of getting our own back after being knocked out the season before. And that 7-0 win in the third qualifying round meant that we were able to progress to the first round proper for the first time ever in the club's history, where we got beaten by Middlesbrough. But the less we talk about that, the better. That kind of going one better than the season before, and knocking out the team that knocked us out the season before at the same stage was good. I would absolutely love some easy draws this year, but knowing our luck in cup competitions, that won't happen. We'll get somebody from our division in the third qualifying round, and then hopefully we win that, and we'll probably get rewarded with somebody from the third tier in the first round proper, because that's just how things go with us and cup draws. But yeah, That game against Barnsley last season was special. Knocking out higher tier opposition after being knocked out by them previously was delightful. But yeah, I would absolutely love some nice easy draws. Get a WSL side at our place, and then I'll take getting beat there. That'll be all right.
I think for me, I spoke a lot last season about one particular game, so I won't go through that. But I'm sure people who know me would know what that FA Cup game was. So I'm not going to mention that one. I'm going to mention one that unfortunately I missed this game because I was still new to lower league. It was in 2021. So that's twice I mentioned it. It was my first season watching Stourbridge, and that was in Tier 5 at the time. And they came up against Derby County, who was a well-established Tier 3 side. And at that point, Stourbridge was going really, really well in Tier 5. And they had like a lot of noise, a lot of eyes on them. They were signing a lot of good players in the area. But I don't think too many people away from Stourbridge kind of knew how good they was end up going to be. So to go to Derby away from home and to score a last minute winner, and the goal was pretty much from about 35, 40 yards out. There's some iconic photos there, and that certainly helped put that club on the map for people outside of the West Midlands area. And they ended up backing that up with promotion and then promotion again. So for me, even though I wasn't there, I know how meaningful it was for a club at Tier 5 level. And let's not even talk about the money side of it as well. So yeah, it's one that I miss, and it's a massive shame. I'll always miss that memory, but I remember the photographs, and I remember parents talking about it, and they still talk about it now. So for me, it was Stourbridge winning Derby.
Stu, straight in from you.
Oh, it's quite an easy one for me. At Moneyfields, we had a fantastic little cup run season before last, so that would have been the 23-24 season where we made it to the fourth round. It was an interesting journey. I think we managed to beat Millwall in the third round. And we were sat there ready. Well, we could get a big name. We could get Chelsea, and we got London City Lionesses, which for us, we know that that's a big old draw. But for the layman in Portsmouth, where we're based, they'd be going, who? And they'd be like, oh, Millwall, we know about them. And then you kind of think, well, isn't that strange how like people couldn't quite get it? And then there's the whole story about effectively we were playing Millwall twice in the same competition in some form in a weird way, in a weird turn of fate. But yeah, it was a fantastic tie for us. In reality, out of all of the teams in the top two tiers we could have played, it was a game that we had a good crack at, actually, to be honest. And objectively, if you watch the match on the iPlayer, you would say that apart from the last couple of minutes of the first half and the first 15, 20 minutes of the second half, we were the better side. We had chances to score, but they were absolutely ruthless. They had one chance right at the end of the first half, which kind of really kind of hit us hard. And I wouldn't say it was a failure to recover in the second half, to be honest. I just think that they had that little bit of quality. They killed the game off. And while we had the better end of it of the last 20 minutes, they were 4-0 up at that point. So a neutral might argue that maybe they kind of went down into sort of second gear at that point. But from us, it was good. It wasn't a humbling. It was a really good day. The whole atmosphere was just fantastic. We had the BBC Football Focus down to come and visit us. We featured on The Guardian, featured on the BBC, the main page. So for us, it was lovely. We are a relatively small club that many from outside of the South Coast probably wouldn't even know where Moneyfields is. They probably wouldn't realise that we're actually just named after the road that we're based in. So for us to get our moment in the spotlight was fantastic, and very well deserved. And it was brilliant. We took the coach down there. We hired out a hotel where we had a breakfast put on. We did a full on sort of pre-match, and it was great. It was great. It was a great memory that will live. Well, it will be with me till my dying day. The hope is, as all of you will probably agree that are involved in football clubs, is that you hope that you can trump that memory this year, and we can make it one better, because it's great fun. They talk about the magic of the cup, but it really is alive in the women's section.
No, I quite agree, and I think it is a brilliant competition. I think it's very difficult for me to narrow these down, because one of them isn't really my memory, it's somebody else's. But I think obviously making 2 FA Cup finals and watching those has been quite something. It's not something you always get the chance to go and do in the men's game, is to go and find a place there where you can do that. If you go back to the very first ever show on All Women's Football, you'll find that we did a few conversations, and I spoke about a girl who used to play for us, Vicky Neal. She played for Cambridge United as well before. She still works there now. And we just sort of did this article about how she had gone through the game, and at one point she had left university and she needed somewhere to be, and she was basically coaching this village team, and she decided to take them into what would be the Eastern region where we are. And so she took them not full time, but obviously to a quite a high level in terms of them just being low league side, really. It's not London City Lionesses, as we were just saying there, but they were putting a lot of effort in. It's a lot of work for a voluntary role. And I just remember her saying how the fans didn't really come and watch it too much. It was just a local village. But it was very interesting that obviously the FA Cup starts, and when there's an FA Cup match, all of a sudden people go, all right, FA Cup. And all of the village turned out, which was the first time the FA Cup had ever been played in their local stadium. So it was really quite a cool thing, and I think that's the power of summer women's football. But my personal favourite is probably going to be last season's game for Stevenage against Luton, and it's weird because we lost it, so it's not really the best thing ever. But it was the second round of the FA Cup. It was the chance to make it to the hallowed third round, and finished 15-14 on penalties, and I've never watched a penalty shootout as long as that in my life. And it takes you up and down. We thought we were going to win it. Luton had gone first. We got all the way through all of the players. Everybody had scored. Then one of the Luton players missed, and you think, oh, this is it. This is the one. And then you look, and it's our goalkeeper that has to step up and take it, and you're like, oh, and she didn't score it. So that was a bit of we'll go round again. And it was very, very sad that a really good player, Hannah Nevitt, missed hers. But it was all on target, every single one of them. So the ones that were missed were all saved. So there you go. That's my one. Listen, it's been a superb evening. Thank you so much, gents, for your time. Please do go and follow all of these people, and especially over there, Since 71 blog. Lots going on there in the, what should we call it, the revitalisation of Since 71, the re-emergence. I don't know what quite to call it. The resurrection.
Yeah, something like that. The phoenix back from the flames after the demands of two children taking away my attention. Yeah, potentially. And the one thing I will say is, if there is anyone watching this that thinks, oh, do you know what, I'd like to tell some stories about women's football, or just focus on your own club as a one-off, drop us a line. We look to cover every tier of women's football, down to grassroots, down to under-18s football. So if you think that there's a story to be told, either let us know, because we'll write it, or if you think you want to write it, then we'll support you and we'll get that done. Because I started the website because I wanted some of these stories that were being lost to be told and shared and immortalized somewhere on the internet on our page. So don't be shy, drop us a line, or if you know someone that might be interested, drop us a line.
Super duper. And that is where we will leave it this evening. As I say, we won't be back next week because I will be at Royston Town watching, hopefully, them against Stevenage. So that is where I will be, but we'll hopefully be back the week after, where we can look back at some Tier 4 football and some Tier 3 football, of course, get some WNL, and of course we will also be looking back over whatever's happening in the FA Cup. Where are we going to be? It's going to be so exciting. Women's football, it's back, it's on, and we love it. Cheers, everybody. Take care.